Many thanks for choosing us. Let's begin with Special Prosecutor Nominee Kissi Agyebeng, who says he will make corruption a costly activity for public officials if he is given the nod. He says he will roll out a Pressure for Progress initiative that will review public sector agencies and publish corruption perception index ranking them. He says he will create 2 more divisions at the office.
My strategy is that I'm not naive to assume that I'm coming to stop corruption. There is no way I can stop corruption. God himself will not even acclaim to that. But I am going to make corruption very costly, very, very costly to engage in terms of conflict of interest.
Jama, he has just said that he'll make corruption costly, high-risk activity. How do you intend to walk that?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair. First, I'm going to institute what I call Pressure for Progress. And in this quest, there will be a systemic review of all public agencies.
What was the word you...
I said I have termed it Pressure for Progress.
Pressure for Progress.
Yes.
Very well. I thought it was a Latin word you spoke. I didn't get it out.
I'm going to institute systemic reviews of public sector institutions and the development of integrity plans. And here, this is what I intend to do. Why can't we have our own corruption perceptions index, for instance? Why can't I rank public sector agencies against each other? And at the end of the year, publicize the results as to which institution is performing well and which institution is not performing well. In that quest, if you are head of an institution and persistently your institution is drawing the short straw in terms of the perception of corruption from the point of view of experts, from the point of view of business people, you will set up. Because
Special Prosecutor, you're aware that you are being appointed to operate a particular law. Where will you draw your authority to be publishing perception, corruption, or corruption perception index of agencies? Where under the law will you have that your authority from?
Now, which the Act empowers me, if I'm given the nod by this House, to institutionalize risk assessment in respect of public agencies. And in doing risk assessment in terms of the activities of public sector agencies, it is a form of institutionalization of that systemic review of their activities. The Act also empowers me periodically, if I'm given the nod, to publish the activities of the OSP and the operations engaged in. In line with this, it is an offshoot of the mandates of the OSP that I could go ahead after the process of risk assessment, integrity of every public sector agency, to then come out with my results as to who is doing well and who is not doing well. It is an offshoot of that mandate.
Are you done with answering?
No, I'm not done.
Continue with that one, and other members will come in.
From the Act, Honorable Chair, 4 divisions have been created therein. Finance and administration, prosecutions, investigations, asset recovery and management. I intend to create 2 more divisions to give more teeth to the OSP office if given the nod. The Act itself envisages that the OSP can create more divisions if it so desires. And I'll be adding 2 divisions. One, a strategy and research division.
Chairman, just hold it there. I'm not interjecting. Go to section 19 of your act and make appropriate references for our purposes. You are just special prosecutor. The law assumes that you have a board. And in answering the question as Chairman posed it, the mandate is not just yours. So reference the board for our purposes, for our record. You only can create additional divisions with the concurrence of the board. Is that not legally accurate? Am I not accurate?
It is so, Honorable Chair. I believe, my apologies, but I believe I said the OSP. So when I said the OSP, it wasn't in reference to a person but the office. So the aggregate of the office, including the board. That is the context in which I placed it.
Let's cross over to Parliament where the vetting has ended and speak with our man, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, who's been monitoring events for us. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, what more can you tell us about the vetting of Kissi Agyebeng, prosecutor nominee, special prosecutor nominee?
To a close, a number of questions came up that he offered responses to in the course of the vetting. There was a 10-minute break in the middle of the vetting session, after which the MPs came back and continued interviewing him. A number of issues came up. First of all, there were suggestions from some of the members of the appointment committee that unexplained wealth should be criminalized. And Mr. Kissi Agyebeng, in response to the suggestion, agreed that when people are unable to explain what sort of wealth that they have, one way or the other, some form of criminality should be associated with it, and the burden of proof be placed on themselves to then show that they got the money genuinely. And that's one of the proposals that's actually coming up in terms of how the country can help fight corruption. Not just that, there's been a conversation around how he would go about his work, and he made the point at the sitting of the committee that his conscience and his learning of the law is what exactly will be his guide. He was asked about how he feels stepping into the big shoes of Martin Amidu, who is actually the person who is kind of handing over to him and who resigned based on whether that particular slot became vacant. And to quote Mr. Agyebeng, he made the point that he is coming in his own shoes, and he hopes to work according to his conscience and according to his understanding of the law in order to get the work done. There's also been some questions to him about how he's going to tackle corruption generally. And to quote Mr. Agyebeng, he says he will make corruption a very costly activity as special prosecutor. He makes the point that it wouldn't be possible to stop corruption because then it's linked to human attitude and all of that. But he is hoping to do his part in terms of making it a very costly endeavor for public officials and private individuals who engage in some of these corrupt acts. And he made the point that he will be introducing what he describes as progress. Well, he calls it pressure for progress. It's one of the things that he says he will be introducing to ensure that the fight against corruption goes on unimpeded. He says that there will be a systemic review of various public sectors, and there will be the publication of a perception index for public institutions as far as how they're able to deal with issues of corruption are concerned. And that's one of the mechanisms that he says he will be introducing as a way to deal with corruption. He announced that there will be the creation of 2 more divisions at the Office of the Special Prosecutor, also to help them deal with the fight against corruption. There were questions to him about Martin Amidu in one of his epistles, linking him to the Japa deal and he made the point that he knows nothing about the Ajapa deal. He says that Martin Amidu's description of his appointment as one having to do with family and friends, and claims by Mr. Martin Amidu that he's a surrogate for some other high power is something that's untrue, and that all these comments are being made by people who don't exactly know him. Aisha, just to run you through two other things that he commented on. There was a question to him about his age, and claimed that he's too young to then be in the position to deal with issues having to do with corruption. He's only 43 years of age. He fought back on that and said that he's qualified to be president per the standards of the Constitution, and he's trained a number of lawyers, including members of Parliament who serve today. And he makes the point that he's been at the front row in very high-profile corruption cases in the country, and so he thinks he has the good experience, including all the years he served teaching criminal law, to be able to serve as special prosecutor. And he's been calling for the passage of a Corruption Practices Act to help deal with corruption in the country. He's been insisting that the ANAS principle, in terms of jumping on journalistic productions when it comes to investigative works, is something that he will continue to apply going forward in terms of dealing with corruption in the country. And he's also been expressing concern that there is a seeming conflict between the work of the Office of Special Prosecutor and the Attorney General, which he hopes will be fixed going forward. But essentially, he's been making the point to committee members that he's ready for the work, and he looks forward to helping the country deal with issues of corruption. But I've been engaging Chairman of the Appointment Committee, Jose Usu, a while ago, and he's been confirming that soon after the 4-hour vetting, the committee members met and they've decided that they are recommending Mr. Kissi Agyebeng to the plenary for the necessary approval to allow him to become the special prosecutor. So that report will go to the committee members in the next few days, from the committee members to the plenary in the next few days, and then we're expecting that the approval will be given, and then he'll be sworn in eventually by the president, so that then he can begin work and go ahead and act on the promises that he is giving to the committee members in terms of what he is hoping to do in order to help deal with the fight against corruption. Aisha.
Joseph Opoku Gakpo is our man in Parliament, and he's been updating us with what has been happening in Parliament. But Mr. Agyebeng himself has also dismissed claims by Martin Amidu linking him to the Ajapa deal. You heard Gakpo elaborate on that question. He said the claims are being made from uninformed position. Listen.
You have been described in language that is not too palatable by the said former special prosecutor. Now, in it, he says that Mr. Kissi Agyebeng is a surrogate of a law firm. Then he goes on to further implicate you as one of the key architects of the Ajapa, the botched Ajapa royalties transaction. Now, if you juxtapose these allegations with the role of special prosecutor as an entity that ought to be independent, you have your would-be predecessor, that is, if given the nod, describe you in such language. Honorable nominee, what is your take on this? Are you a surrogate of anybody?
Honorable Chair, then before I go on, there's one more disclosure that I have to make in respect of Honorable Member Busa North. I was actually the chairman at his wedding reception.
Chairman was right. That he almost said that yes, I do on your lips too.
Honorable Chair, if I may answer. Whoever says I'm a surrogate of a law firm or implicates me in the Japa transaction clearly does not know me. Because if you know me, you wouldn't make such allegations. And so all these things that came up, I took it as coming from uninformed positions. Because I was not involved in the Japa transaction in any form or manner, by any stretch of the imagination, however fertile. As for relationships, as I just disclosed, the fact that I was so close to you at some point in our lives will not give you, or you not give me a free pass because of that relationship. And that is why I'm here. And if there is a matter, I'm not going to say because I know one person or the other, I'm going to give the person a free pass. I certainly will investigate. But the truth of the matter ought to be told. I wasn't involved in the deal. I was nowhere near it. Indeed, until it started coming up, I didn't even know what it was.
He has also been responding to questions on his age. He says he's more than qualified for the position.
Honorable Chair, first, the age. I turned 43 years on 2nd July, a few weeks ago. I qualified to be the president of this republic. I am age mates with the president of the French Republic. Indeed, he should forgive me for saying this. I'm a year older than the Minister for Justice and Attorney General. We were mates at the University of Ghana and Ghana School of Law. He is the Minister for Justice and Attorney General. There's no question about his age. Why then throw issues about my age? In terms of experience, as I stated much earlier, I was called to the bar some 18 years ago. I qualified to sit on the Supreme Court of Ghana. Indeed, I'm 3 years past the qualification for Supreme Court. I have taught criminal law, especially in the University of Ghana, for 15 years, continuously. I see, if I'm not mistaken, some of my former students around this table. Honorable member for Ejuso is my former student. Honorable member for Medina is my former student. Honorable member for Kaikwe Central, I was their TA in conflict of laws. These are the products of my experience. They are here, right here, for everyone to see. And, Honorable Chair, to anchor on that, I have had a front row, although I have not been a prosecutor, properly so-called. I have had a front row to landmark prosecutions in this country. As defense counsel, I have been engaged in some very landmark cases, including the Tagore case, the Baglas Kanko case. I conducted them. Honorable Chair, when Tiger IPI and Arumia announced come up with their investigative pieces, I am the one who supervises, and I've been doing this for quite a while, supervises the collation of evidence and all that for presentation to the Attorney General. Without me, the Attorney General's office will be poorer in terms of those prosecutions. So I can go on and on, but my experience is out there. And going beyond this committee to the bigger house, I think the honorable member for Old Tafu was also my former student. My experience is out there. It's on record.
Let's cross over to Parliament once again because Chairman of the Appointments Committee is briefing the media.
Whatever recommendations that are permissible under the rules can be made by a committee, but whether the House accepts or not, the recommendation depends on the House. There is the Parliament Act, which regulates what kind of punishment can be enforced if a member is charged with contempt or abuse of privilege. Yes, so it's a law that will determine what we can do.
Some have predicted it's likely to amount to nothing because you've seen it before, him being summoned to the Privileges Committee, the hearing being done and nothing happened. For those who hold such a position, what will you say to them?
Nothing. That's their prediction. That's their view. It's always, people are entitled to speculate on any matter. But what we will do, will come, whatever conclusions we come to, will be put before the House.
Is that not?
It's not open to me to assume that the House will deal with my report this way or that way.
Chairman, even before the nominee, the said continual comes in.
The Speaker, in respect of any such thing, the committee does not take on any matter on its own. A committee is a committee of the House, and a committee of the House may deal with matters that are referred to it by Mr. Speaker. So we are on our own, cannot take on any matter. If anybody has any issue, he will petition Mr. Speaker, and then if Mr. Speaker considers it worth investigating, he will refer it to the committee.
But if witnesses decide to adduce that as part of their evidence or their cases against the alleged contempt, no, they probably are allowed to do that.
Well, there's a matter before us. If there's evidence that will assist whoever, the petitioner, to prove his point, why not? But it doesn't add additional value. The same one petition that is before us, and that is what we're dealing with.
Kissi Agyebeng, I'll quickly move on to this. What happens next now that you are done with his vetting?
The same is before the House, for the House to determine approval or disapproval of our recommendation.
Did he answer the questions to your expectations as far as today's session is concerned?
What were your own observations? My observation, my committee's view is simply to recommend the House to approve the nomination or not. As to how other people value or view his answers, I'd rather leave it to them. I just stay within the rules and just make recommendations to the House.
We know you met in camera soon after. Has he been recommended by the committee for the necessary approval?
Yes, the committee unanimously agreed to recommend him to the House for approval.
Bank of Ghana, collapse of banks, beyond when the Bank of Ghana refused to turn up the last time they invited them for a session.
We have since had one meeting and written to them that we still want them to appear. Indeed, we're supposed to meet today and hope that they will appear before the committee.
You get the sense they've changed their position as against what their lawyers wrote to you earlier?
Sense or otherwise is perception, it's speculation. We wrote to them to appear, so I'll find the fact when the meeting convenes.
And there are likely to be other meetings eventually?
Why moving me into the realm of speculation? I'm not going to speculate. When the time is up, I'll be there. Well, my dream dear, maybe I'll say you the pay free.
And joining me via Zoom for a conversation on this is Justice Tremsai. He's a law lecturer. Later, Adam Senanu, who is also an anti-corruption campaigner, will be joining in this conversation. I'm grateful for your time, Counsel. But before we get into this conversation, I would like us to listen to the Special Prosecutor Nominee, who's been talking about his role and that of the Office of the Attorney General.
It's mandate directly from Article 88 of the Constitution, and that article is the one that vests the prosecutorial powers of the state in an Attorney General Now, do you envisage a situation whereby the functions of the special prosecutor would conflict with the functions of the Attorney General, given the fact that these are functions largely derived from the constitutional powers bestowed on the Attorney General?
Initially, I would like to believe, Honorable Chair, that when this process started, you could tell that there was a clear and happy friction as to how it was going to go. And so some of us even pointed out to the then Attorney General, informally then, actually, that, I mean, as a lecturer of criminal law, when you see some of these things, you would have to tell those in authority as to how things should properly go. There was a concern of this friction between the Attorney General and the OSP under Act 959 because of the way Article 88 has been couched. Because it gives all prosecutorial powers to the Attorney General, but then, by way of delegation, the Attorney General can delegate a person or institution to carry on prosecutions. So what the draftsman did in Act 959 is a sort of taking that discretion under Article 88 from the Attorney General, putting it in Act 959 and saying that the OSP can prosecute on the authority of the Attorney General. It is stated in the Act. And so by that formulation, from the onset in the Act, the OSP already has the authority of the Attorney General because Parliament has said so. But that will not end the story if more delineation is not done. So it appears tenuously, but the draftsman also tried to do something in Act 959 by specifying the offenses the OSP can investigate, can initiate, and conduct prosecutions in respect of. That is corruption and corruption-related offenses. There is a problematic one, the last one, which says existent offenses in relation to corruption and corruption-related offenses. It's problematic because if it is not well thought through, then a lot of friction could arise there. The reason is simple. There are two main forms of offenses that may arise in this regard. One, we have what we call predicate offenses. With predicate offenses, these are offenses which forms component parts of a bigger offense. And so if the OSP is prosecuting an offense, but its component is not clearly delineated in the Act, in Act 959, and it is in the province of the Attorney General, some friction may arise there. And then the other form of offenses I would refer to as antecedent offenses. Let me give an example of the first one, the predicate offenses. For instance, corruption as an offense could have a predicate offense like money laundering. But money laundering is not specifically stated in Act 959. So the OSP can then go to the umbrella and say, okay, these are existent offenses that arise or are consequent upon corruption. There, the Attorney General could also say, look, money laundering is my province and not yours. That is what I mean. Then in respect of the antecedent offenses, these are offenses that are committed before a major offense itself is committed. For instance, If we take the offense of dishonest receiving under Act 29, something must have occurred before someone receives or disposes of property. That is to say, if you are dishonestly receiving, property that is the proceeds of a crime. It means a crime must have already been committed in respect of that property or funds for which you dishonestly received. If the antecedent offense has not been committed, you do not come in charging someone with dishonestly receiving. And in respect of the antecedent offenses, problems of friction could also arise in respect of the Attorney General. But I see that Dosma also tried to do something under Act 959. He said, the OSP, within 30 days after the end of a proceedings, should inform the Attorney General as to the case, its outcome, and all.
Let's bring in Justice Shremsai. He is a law lecturer at GIMPA. Mr. Shremsai, the Special Prosecutor was emphatic that a number of provisions in our Constitution, if not checked, could create problems. And he specifically mentions Article 88, which spells out the mandate of the Attorney General. What are the challenges with Article 88? Do you know?
Yeah, thank you very much. And first of all, let me congratulate my former lecturer, Mr. Kissi Agyebeng, for his forthrightness during the interview. And this is a point which we have made time and again when the legislation was being, debated and passed, that there is no quick fix to the problem that is created under Article 88.4. There is only one definite solution to that problem, is to carry out a constitution amendment which will hive off the prosecutorial powers from the office of from the Minister Minister of State, so that we can have an independent. Because don't forget that the reason for all these discussions about getting a special prosecutor is about the independence, and so long as that authority is in the Constitution as authority of the Attorney General, who is also a Minister of State, you cannot have an independent special prosecutor. And a lot of discussion have gone on in academia, and I have been, a part of some of these discussions. When we try as much as possible to convince the power holders at the time, the decision makers at the time, that there is no quick fix to this problem. There is only one long haul. You need to amend Article 88. And this is not the first time. You see, sometimes we need to focus, we need to go back to history to be able to understand some of these things. The Office of the Attorney General, it is not the case that that office has always been under the government or the executive authority. In, I think, 1957 Constitution of Ghana, and I think the 1969, one of the two constitutions, the Office of Attorney General was actually an independent office as any public office, which was independent of the executive power. So it was in subsequent constitutions that the office was joined together with the executive, and therefore becoming a sub-office of the executive power of state. So we were proposing at the time that we could go back to the 1957 position, because that is what Ghanaians said they wanted. Because when you read the CRC report, Ghanaians were definite. And the problem was that since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, you only find a situation where
all right. I think we're losing Justice Shremsai there. We'll try and bring him back because he's making very important points over there. But thankfully, Adam Senano, who is an anti-corruption campaigner, has also joined the discussion. And as we try to get Justice Shremsai to join, let me bring you in, Adam Senano. After listening to the Special Prosecutor Nominee at the vetting, are you rest assured that Kissi Agyebeng is the man for the job? Hello, Mr. Senano. If you can hear me, I'm asking if after the vetting, you still think Kissi Agyebeng he has what it takes to do the job. Okay, so as we try to get Edem Senano to get back on, let's listen to Kissi Agyebeng, who's been speaking about his plans to make corruption activities costly for public officials.
My strategy is that I'm not naive to assume that I'm coming to stop corruption. There is no way I can stop corruption. God himself will not even acclaim to that. But I am going to make corruption very costly, very, very costly to engage in terms of conflict of interest.
Jama, he has just said that he'll make corruption costly, high-risk activity. How do you intend to walk that?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair. First, I'm going to institute what I call pressure for progress. And in this quest, there will be a systemic review of all public agencies.
What was the word you...
I said I have termed it pressure for progress.
Pressure for progress.
Yes.
Very well. I thought it was a Latin word you spoke. I didn't get it out.
I'm going to institute systemic reviews of public sector institutions and the development of integrity plans. And here, this is what I intend to do. Why can't we have our own corruption perceptions index, for instance? Why can't I rank public sector agencies against each other and at the end of the year publicize the results as to which institution is performing well and which institution is not performing well? In that quest, if you are head of an institution and persistently your institution is drawing the short straw in terms of the perception of corruption from the point of view of experts, from the point of view of business people, you will set up.
Let's go back on the line and speak with Justice Tremsai, who's been explaining to us why there may be a very critical reason why Article 88 should be amended or reviewed. Justice Tremsai, you were making the point. Okay, I think the line has dropped. Justice Tremsai, can you hear me? Hello, Justice Sai. Okay, I think we've lost him briefly. We'll try and get him back on the line because this is a very important conversation we must have. But Edem Senano, thankfully, is back via Zoom. Mr. Senano, I was asking you, after listening to Kissi Agyebeng at the vetting, do you still think, or are you rest assured that he's a man for the job?
To him, so I'm trying to catch up. But I mean, I think that everybody should be given their day. At this point, if the parliamentary caucus are so inclined, we are just, I'll put it this way, that we will just have to live to see what he's able to deliver. And we pray that Ghana will be the better for it. So I haven't listened to what he said, but if he gets the nod, I think we should all just support him to try and get the best results for Ghana. Okay,
so he specifically assured Ghanaians that he will make corruption a costly activity for public officials if given the nod. How does this strike you?
Well, it's the kind of thing that we ought to have been doing throughout the years, because we've not had as many prosecutions leading to judgments and rulings and sanctions where people are penalized, demanded to pay back with interest. It's kind of made it easy for people to think that, look, we can continue business as usual, rape the purse of government and the state, engage in corruption with impunity. And we don't expect that anything very punitive will happen to us. So if he is able to do that kind of job where he doesn't just do a lot of paperwork, but prosecutions happen, there's the rules that rulings are made where people are found culpable and monies are retrieved, people are sent to jail. Gradually, especially if that information is put in the public space for others to see that this is what is going on, it will set the precedent and serve as a deterrent for others to want to engage in. And yes, that will make it costly for people who want to engage in corruption.
Mr. Senator, you have admitted right on this channel that fighting corruption is really not that easy as people may look at it to be or may see it to be. Because whilst you're fighting corruption, corruption will fight you back. Per his own assessments, I'm talking about Mr. Kissi Agyebeng, what will be your expectation of the special prosecutor?
I think that he's got to have a mindset that, look, even those who have supported me in this process are likely to be people who one way, directly or indirectly, might be found as people or persons linked to some of the cases I'm going to handle. And to prepare himself emotionally and otherwise, mentally, to deal with these facts as they come up to him, because that's actually what we find in our space. He's going to be a lot more innovative, and his personal, how do I put it, interpersonal skills in trying to get collaboration from the other security agencies will be very important to the speed with which he will to investigate and get cases finalized. So we expect someone who will work assiduously, collaboratively with other security agencies to uncover any rot that has occurred. We expect someone who will come up with new strategies, and I gather he's mentioned one or two, in order to serve as a deterrent. And I'm expecting someone who will not shy away from putting out in the public space his findings in a more timely manner, not wait 6, 9 months, 1 year before we start hearing about issues. That does not serve the purpose of setting a high standard that will make people know that this is a slippery slope to engage in. So much more forthright, much more speedy information to let us know the state and the progress of cases he chooses to handle.
Right. Thankfully, Justice Remsai is back on the line. Justice Remsai, you were talking about the challenges we've had with this Article 88.
Yes, Aisha, the point I was making is this. There is something called the hierarchy of norms, which rank laws in every state. And you would agree that the Constitution is the supreme law of Ghana. And then the Constitution is followed by acts of parliament and then by subsidiary legislation in that order. Now, if there is a problem in a Constitution which needs to be amended, you do not solve that problem by making an act of parliament to go around it. And I am particularly happy that there's a nominee, the Special Prosecutor Nominee, has admitted openly and quite correctly that that is going to be one of the challenges to face. I mean, he's an expert in criminal law and prosecution, and he knows that if he's prosecuting a case, one of the defenses that may come when he is far advanced in the prosecution is that he does not have the power, or the power he is purporting to exercise is not legitimate. And he made a point, which we need to note. The point was that the law gives, the Constitution gives the Attorney General the power, the discretion to delegate. Parliament, by making an act, cannot purport to be exercising that delegation or that discretion on behalf of the Attorney General. You know, so these are some of the questions that may be hanging and awaiting any prosecution in the future. And I believe that we need to really look at this if we are really serious about the fight against corruption. My other colleague who just spoke told you that fighting corruption is not something that you can do when you are not ready. Because corruption, as has been said, will fight you back. And one way of fighting you back is when you yourself have made some of these mistakes in your process. So I believe that, well, we can start something, but while going on with the special office of the special prosecutor as created by this legislation, we could still be looking at a more enduring, a more durable solution, which is the decoupling of the prosecutorial powers of the Attorney General. And I was mentioned, I don't know whether that point was captured when the line dropped. It has not always been the case that prosecutorial power has been part of executive power. I think in the 1957 Constitution, or either 1957 or the 1960 Constitution, the office of the Attorney General, was an independent office, a public office, and the Attorney General was only accountable to Parliament and not to the executive. You understand? So it is not as if we have not been where we want to go before. We have actually been there before. It's just a matter of bringing the past back, and that problem would be solved. I mean, when you read the CRC report, you will notice that across the country, length and breadth and everywhere, Ghanaians are really worried about this problem where corruption happens in government and nobody gets punished unless the people who are in government leave, and then the people leave power and then the new government comes. People were worried because if you want the law to be what we call rule of law, fairness of application of law, evenness of the law's hand, and all the things that we talk about when we say rule of law, then it means that people who your being in government should not matter. That should not matter when it comes to criminal prosecution. So it is actually a great problem that we have, which we must tackle with all the strength in us. And I'm happy that at least even from the office of the special prosecutor himself, he has pointed out some of this direction. And he actually was one of the people who stood firm and actually criticized this legislation from actually coming to effect, and suggested that a more durable solution was always the constitutional amendment. So I look forward that, well, it's not too late. It's something that we can build consensus about, we can have consultation about, we can consult broadly and agree that, look, corruption is a big problem. And then everything that we need to do, including amending the constitution to ensure that we fight it and fight it strongly, should be done.
Justice, I'm happy that you talk about a more durable solution. For you, what would be a more durable solution to this challenge, the challenges you've enumerated? I'm talking about in what form you think this review should be.
Yeah, so in this case, I join not only the nominee, the special prosecutor nominee, but also all the scholars who have called for such, and that recommendation is clear and emphatic that to be able to ensure and guarantee the independence of the special prosecutor or prosecution of public offences, the power of the prosecutorial power of the Attorney General should be hived off from that of the executive, so that there will be that power, whoever holds that power to prosecute, will be completely independent at the constitutional level from the president. And that is what we mean by amending Article 88.4 to separate that power from the executive.
I'm grateful for your time. Adam Sanano is still on. Adam Sanano, when Kissi Agyebeng was asked whether he will be able to fit into the shoes of Martin Amido, the response he gave was that he's coming in with his own shoes. For you, what would be the first step you would like to see him take in the event he's given the nod, considering the challenges we've had with the Special Prosecutor's Office?
Well, I think that it will be important to give us a status report baseline. I just got in. These are the number of cases that the office had picked up in the last tenure. This is the status of these cases. Let's all understand the point at which he comes in, and it will serve as a reference for the old cases and the new cases he might take on board. So we need a status report. That office, by law, is supposed to have given us feedback every 6 months, and ideally should even have been doing much better than the 6 months. So a status report on what cases have been picked up, what levels of investigations have been done, if there are some in court, what stages they are in, and then what he intends to do about those cases would be a good place for us to start from. And then probably lay out what additional things in terms of cases, in terms of strategies, he's going to take. Some kind of press conference, press release at some point, giving us an update, will begin to assure us that he's ready to start work and to do so assiduously. But having said that, I also want to add my voice to justice and many of us in this space who would like to see a revamped constitution. This is not the only area where there are limitations that impinge on the development of the nation. And I think it's about time, like Kenya and other jurisdictions, we took the issue of a new or revamped constitution very, very seriously. It is the only way to ensure that the influence or excessive powers of the executive that we see, the political elite who are seemingly taking up the middle ground, can be dealt with comprehensively and allow competency for persons who are appointed to these offices and the experience to be brought fully to bear on the tasks that they are given to do on behalf of the people of Ghana.